They don't warn you what this path actually takes. They sell you the highlight reels, the flashy exits, the billion-dollar valuations, the applause. But what they don't show you is the blood in the foundation, the cold, lonely nights where your only companion is doubt, the sacrifices no one claps for, the internal wars you fight silently while smiling for the world. Entrepreneurship isn't just a journey. It's a battle, not against the market or competition or even failure, but against yourself, against that weaker version of you that wants comfort, that wants validation before results, that wants to be liked more than it wants to be legendary. But here's the truth. You don't build greatness by playing safe. You build it by walking through the fire that others run from. You build it by standing up every time your knees buckle. You build it by becoming someone even your past self wouldn't recognize. Because this game is not for the faint of heart. You will be misunderstood. You will be underestimated. You will be told no so many times it echoes in your bones. But if you can survive the silence, if you can keep building when no one's watching, if you can hold your vision with bloody hands and swollen pride, then what you're creating isn't just a business. It's a legacy. You are not here to blend in. You're here to disrupt, to solve what no one else can, to see what others are blind to build what doesn't exist yet. And to do that, you must stop thinking like the herd. Because conventional thinking builds conventional lives. And you didn't come here to be average. You came to break rules, to tear apart the blueprint and write your own, to turn scarcity into abundance and resistance into revenue. But how? It starts with how you think. Because your mindset will either be your prison or your passport. So if you're going to build something real, something powerful, then you must adopt the counterconventional mindset of the entrepreneur. The ones they don't teach in business school. The ones that built every disruptive empire the world has ever seen. Step 1. Yes, we can. The entrepreneur's rebellion against playing small. In the corporate world, they teach you to stay in your lane, stick to your core competencies, double down on what you're good at, and reject everything outside of it. It sounds smart, safe, strategic. But here's the truth. They're building machines. You're building movements. And movements don't emerge from comfort zones. They erupt from chaos, from saying yes to the things you aren't ready for, yet. The conventional mindset says, I'll wait until I have all the information. Let me build a system first. We don't do that here. But the entrepreneurial spirit is forged in the fires of uncertainty. It stares at an impossible ask and answers, yes, we can. Not because you know how, but because you know you will figure it out. When Arnold Correa said yes to building a satellite broadcast system, he had zero experience. No background in the technology, no roadmap, no safety net, just a client's vision and his own belief that he could rise to the challenge. That decision didn't just win a client, it transformed his entire company. And every time he said yes again to a bigger, scarier request, his business evolved, his value multiplied, his influence expanded. This is the secret they don't want you to know. Most empires are built on the backs of audacious yeses. Yes to the client you're not quite ready for. Yes to the feature you've never built before. Yes to the industry you've never entered. Yes to the pressure that forces you to grow faster than you thought possible. This mindset is anti-permission, anti-perfection, anti-fear. Because fear wants to keep you grounded in what's safe, what's known, what's proven. But your mission, the reason you started all this in the first place, doesn't live in the safe zone. It lives out on the edge of what feels possible. And to reach it, you must override the instinct to play small. Here's the shift. Instead of asking, "Can I do this?" start asking, "How fast can I become the version of myself who can?" The most dangerous entrepreneur isn't the one with the best plan. It's the one who commits to the mission before the map is drawn. So the next time an opportunity shows up, dressed like a challenge, too big, too technical, too far outside your comfort zone, pause. Feel the resistance. Feel the fear. And then say it anyway. Yes, we can. Because that single phrase has more power to reshape your future than 1,000 hours of planning ever will. Now let's move deeper. Let's talk about why the world doesn't need another product. It needs a problem solver. And that takes us to the next principle. Problem first, not product first. Step 2. Problem first, not product first. Build solutions, not souvenirs. Most people are obsessed with building things. They want to create the next big app, design the perfect product, add more features, more bells, more polish. But here's the harsh truth. No one cares how cool your product is if it solves nothing. The graveyard of startups is littered with brilliant ideas that had no reason to exist. Beautiful designs that answered questions no one was asking. Slick tech that served no real pain. Because in the real world, the only thing that matters is this. What problem are you solving? Entrepreneurs don't start with the solution. They start with the wound. They don't chase trends. They hunt suffering. They search for friction, inefficiency, stress, and unmet needs, because that's where the real gold is buried. Jonathan Thorne didn't set out to build a new version of surgical forceps for fun. He noticed a hidden problem that most people had learned to tolerate. Forceps that stick to human tissue. Minor issue? Maybe to outsiders. But for a surgeon, that tiny sticking point meant frustration, lost time, and flawed results. Now imagine that same issue during brain surgery. That's not just inconvenient. That's catastrophic. So what did he do? He designed a tool that didn't stick. Not because the market was begging for a new tool, but because a real, costly problem was begging for a solution. That's how you build a business that lasts. Not by falling in love with your product, but by becoming obsessed with your customers' pain. This is the shift you must make. Stop asking, what should I build? What features should I add? How do I differentiate my product? Start asking, what are people frustrated with every day? What process takes too long, costs too much, or delivers too little? What do they keep putting up with because no one's fixed it yet? Your job isn't to reinvent the wheel. It's to remove the stone stuck in someone's shoe. The more painful the problem, the more valuable the solution. Think about it. Nobody cares about your perfect logo. Nobody cares about your clever tagline. They care about one thing. Can you make their problem go away? And once you do that, once you solve something real, you don't need to convince people to buy. They come looking for you. They tell their friends. They beg for more. But here's the twist. Even after you solve one problem, you must keep listening. Keep asking deeper questions. Keep searching for new, sharper pain. That's what Thorne did when plastic surgeons weren't enough. He pivoted to neurosurgeons, where the problem was 10 times more severe, and the value of the solution skyrocketed. That's how smart entrepreneurs scale. Not by making louder noise, but by solving louder pain. So if you feel stuck, if no one is buying, if the market feels cold, don't build something new. Go deeper. Go back to the problem. Find the real one, the one beneath the surface, and commit to solving it better than anyone ever has. Because in this game, the one who solves the sharpest problem wins. And once you've locked in on a real problem, it's time to stop thinking big and start thinking narrow. Which brings us to the next principle. Think narrow, not broad. Step 3. Think narrow, not broad. Dominate a micro niche. Before you ever dream of taking the world, everyone wants to go big, mass market, global scale, millions of customers. They want to launch and go viral, hit the mainstream, be the next household name. But here's the problem with that fantasy. When you try to reach everyone, you connect with no one. The broader your focus, the weaker your impact. The wider your net, the more diluted your message. You become noise in an already deafening world. But the entrepreneur who dares to think small on purpose, the one who goes deep instead of wide, that's the one who builds something that lasts. Nike didn't start by conquering the world. It started by solving a very specific problem for a very specific type of customer. Elite distance runners. Not just athletes, not sprinters, not gym bros, but long-distance runners. Runners who needed lateral stability, a wider base, more cushioning, and lighter shoes to handle the relentless terrain outside the track. Bowerman and Knight weren't trying to sell to the masses. They were solving a painful problem for people like them. They knew the ache. They knew the injuries. They knew the stakes. That narrow focus gave them an edge. And once they built for that narrow audience, something powerful happened. They developed expertise. They earned trust. They created a cult following that spread their message far beyond what any marketing budget could buy. Then, and only then, did they expand. Michael Jordan didn't wear the first Nike. Runners in Oregon did. John McEnroe didn't launch the brand. Track athletes who were tired of rolled ankles and shin splints did. You see, when you master a niche, when you become the undeniable best in one small corner of the market, you earn the right to scale. So don't be afraid to think small. Don't be afraid to ignore 99% of the world. Don't be afraid to say, this is only for people like this. And if you're not one of them, it's not for you. That takes guts. But that's where loyalty is born. That's where word of mouth lives. That's where category kings are created. Because if you can't dominate a micro niche, you'll never survive in the macro market. This is the opposite of what traditional business thinking teaches. They want you to chase total addressable market numbers. They want you to impress shareholders with scale. But scale without soul is empty, and mass adoption without mastery is meaningless. So instead of chasing the masses, find the few, serve them obsessively, and become legendary in that small circle. Because once you do, the circle expands on its own. You won't need to beg for attention. The world will come looking for you. But even when the world comes, you'll still need one thing to take it all to the next level: cash. And that brings us to the next principle. Ask for the cash and ride the float. Step 4. Ask for the cash and ride the float. Secure the fuel first, then light the fire. Here's a hard truth. Most businesses don't die from lack of ideas. They die from lack of cash. They run out of oxygen before the flame ever catches. They build prototypes, fund development, hire teams, all before securing a single dollar from the people they claim to serve. Why? Because they're still trapped in the old game. The game of build it first, hope they come later. The game of raise money, then pray for profit. But entrepreneurs who survive, entrepreneurs who scale and dominate, they play a different game altogether. They ask for the cash before they deliver. They secure belief before they build. They ride the float, turning trust into capital long before the first product ever hits the market. It's not about manipulation. It's not about hype. It's about testing real desire and using that desire to build something that actually matters. Look at Elon Musk and the Tesla Roadster. He didn't wait until the perfect prototype was built. He didn't spend years developing in the dark, hoping the market would be ready. Instead, he gathered a small army of high-income early adopters who believed in the mission. People who were passionate about the environment, excited about innovation, and ready to own the future. He asked them for $100,000 each. Before a single car had been delivered, he didn't say, "We'll let you know when it's ready." He said, "Put your money down now if you want to be part of this revolution." They said yes. And just like that, $10 million in cash before the first unit rolled off the line. That's not just smart business. That's warrior-level strategy. And it didn't stop there. When the Model 3 was introduced, nearly 500,000 people each placed a $1,000 deposit to reserve a car that didn't yet exist. Do the math. That's $500 million in working capital before the car was even real. This is what it means to ride the float. It's the art of letting belief fund the build. It's about turning your audience into investors long before the VC firms ever get a whiff. It's about solving the cash problem before it crushes your momentum. But here's the kicker. You can only do this if you've nailed the first 3 steps. You must say, "Yes, we can," even when it's uncomfortable. You must solve a real problem, not pitch a vanity project. You must focus narrowly, so your message hits like a sniper, not a shotgun. Do that, and your offer becomes irresistible. People won't just believe in what you're building. They'll pay to be part of it. And that's how you create leverage. That's how you scale without begging investors. That's how you keep ownership, autonomy, and power. Because money moves to confidence. Money follows boldness. Money chases those who prove they can deliver before they even start. So stop waiting for perfect conditions. Stop waiting for funding to fall from the sky. Ask. Now, before the competition even realizes there's a race. And if you're thinking, "But I don't have the resources," perfect. That leads us directly to the next mindset. Beg, borrow, but don't steal. Step 5. Beg, borrow, but don't steal. Resourcefulness will always outperform resources. Here's one of the biggest lies they whisper to entrepreneurs. You need more money to start, more funding, more investors, more equipment, more office space, more staff. But the truth is darker and far more liberating. You don't need more money. You need to stop making excuses. Because history doesn't belong to the most funded. It belongs to the most resourceful. The entrepreneur who's willing to beg, willing to borrow, willing to do whatever it takes without compromising their integrity. You see, entrepreneurs often think they need to own everything. Their own land, their own tech, their own inventory. their own capital. But ownership is a luxury. In the beginning, it's a trap. Because the real game is not about owning assets. It's about leveraging them. That's exactly what Tristram and Rebecca Mayhew did with Go Ape. They had a dream of building treetop adventures, but they didn't own land. They didn't have money to buy forests. They couldn't afford restrooms, parking lots, or infrastructure. So they asked a better question: who already has what we need? Enter the UK Forestry Commission. They had land, they had trees, they wanted more visitors. Perfect. So the Mayhews struck a deal. Let us use your land. We'll drive the visitors. We'll handle the adventure. You provide the space. No loans, no capital raise, no begging banks, just a bold conversation and a brilliant partnership. They didn't own the forest. They borrowed it. And with that simple move, they scaled across the UK, over 30 locations and counting. They borrowed the bathrooms. They borrowed the roads. They borrowed the visibility. They just brought the experience. And it worked. Because the mindset wasn't, what do we lack? It was, what can we leverage? That's the difference between dreamers and builders. Dreamers wait for permission. Builders make the most of what's already in front of them. And you have more than you think. Someone out there has idle land, unused software, a warehouse, collecting dust, a list they don't know how to monetize, an audience they can't serve fully. While you sit there convinced you're broke, they're sitting on assets they don't even know how to use. And that's your opening. But remember, integrity matters. This is not about manipulation. It's not about leeching off others. It's about value exchange. You bring vision. You bring hustle. You bring the strategy to breathe life into dead assets. That's how empires are bootstrapped. You beg with pride. You borrow with honor. But you never steal. Because if you cross that line, if you trade long-term reputation for short-term gain, you may win a quick round, but you'll lose the war. Character still matters in this game, and those who play dirty eventually fall. But those who build through grit, partnerships, creativity, and relentless resourcefulness, they rise. And once you've stopped obsessing over ownership and started focusing on leverage, once you've learned how to move mountains without owning the shovel, you're ready for the final counterconventional mindset. The one that terrifies institutions, the one that flips the entire power dynamic upside down. Don't ask for permission. Step 6. Don't ask for permission. Power is never given. It's taken. If you're waiting for approval, waiting for support, waiting for someone to tell you, now's the time, you've already lost. Because in this game, the real game, no one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the keys to your dream. No one is going to give you permission to disrupt their comfort. And the world, it's built to reward those who dare to move without asking. Permission is the gate that keeps the masses out. Initiative is the weapon that breaks the lock. You think Travis Kalanick and Garrett Camp asked the city of San Francisco if it was okay to create a taxi empire without owning a single taxi? Of course not. Because if they did, they'd still be waiting, buried under red tape, approval forms, and a pile of polite rejections. The regulators weren't ready. The laws weren't written. The system wasn't designed for what they were about to unleash. And that's the point. Entrepreneurs are not here to fit into the system. We're here to break it, rebuild it, and make it better. And that requires a kind of righteous rebellion that can't be taught in boardrooms. or funded by consensus. The more radical your vision, the more resistance you'll face. Not because it's wrong, but because it's new. And systems are built to reject the unfamiliar, even when it's better. You'll be told, that's not how it works. You can't do that here. That's too risky. But what they really mean is, that makes us uncomfortable. That threatens our position. That changes the game, and we don't want it to. Good. Change it anyway. Because if you're building something that truly matters, the road won't be paved. It won't be labeled. It won't have signposts guiding you gently to success. It will be wild and dangerous and filled with people shouting, "You're not allowed." But here's the truth they'll never admit. You don't need to be allowed. You don't need the credentials. You don't need the title. You don't need the background. You need only one thing: the will to move forward anyway. Entrepreneurship has never been about waiting. It's always been about creating. Creating something no one thought was possible, in a way no one expected. Using rules no one gave you. So stop waiting for signs. Stop waiting for the nod of approval. Stop waiting for the green light from a system that was never built for visionaries like you. Take the first step, then another, and keep moving until they have no choice but to follow. Because the most powerful companies in the world today, they weren't started with permission. They were started with conviction. Conviction to build. Conviction to serve. Conviction to disrupt. And if you carry that same fire, if you stop waiting and start claiming your space in the world, you won't just be another entrepreneur. You'll be a force. Now, let's bring it all together. Let's drive these 6 counterconventional mindsets home, so you never forget what separates the legendary from the forgotten. 6 counterconventional mindsets that separate the builders from the broken. Let's be honest. Most people won't make it. Not because they aren't talented. Not because they didn't have a good idea. But because they followed the rules that were never written for people like us. They waited. They played it safe. They asked for permission, stuck to what they knew, built pretty products no one needed, and died broke with a business plan in their drawer. That won't be you. Because now you know the truth. You know that the world doesn't reward those who fit in. It rewards those who break through. Let's recap the mindset that makes that possible. Yes, we can. Say yes to the uncomfortable. Say yes before you're ready. Say yes to what forces your evolution. Growth doesn't ask if you're prepared. It demands you commit and become the one who can deliver. Problem first, not product first. Forget shiny features. Obsess over pain. Fall in love with the wound, not your solution. You're not here to sell a product. You're here to make suffering disappear. Think narrow, not broad. Start small. Dominate a niche. Speak to the few with such power that the many come chasing. Mastery begins in the margins, where most are too arrogant to look. Ask for the cash and ride the float. Don't build first and hope they come. Sell the vision. Secure belief. Let the money validate what matters before you waste time creating something no one wants. Cash isn't a reward. It's a foundation. Beg, borrow, but don't steal. Leverage what already exists. Be relentless. Be creative. Be shameless in your pursuit of traction, so long as you keep your integrity intact. Resourcefulness always outperforms resources. Don't ask for permission. This is your life, your mission, your legacy. Stop waiting for a system designed to stop you. Move forward without the nod. Permission is a trap. Action is liberation. Each of these mindsets is a weapon. Each of them cuts through the noise, the doubt, the bureaucracy, the fear. But only if you use them. You weren't born to be polite. You weren't born to conform. You were born to build. And the moment you stop thinking like the herd, the moment you stop clinging to conventional paths and start forging your own through fire and chaos, that's the moment you stop being just another entrepreneur and start becoming a legend. So ask yourself this right now. Which of these 6 mindsets will you master first? Which one will you wield to break through your current limits? Which one will become the blade you carry into the battlefield of business every single day? Because this world isn't going to hand you a crown. You must take it. And now you know how. Let's go.